Yo, what's up, guys? Unfortunate loss for the Raptors tonight, but an expected loss tonight, unfortunately. Raptors losing to the Boston Celtics tonight, 115-101, guys. Another loss for the Raptors against a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, a top 10 team in the NBA, guys. The Raptors just continue to have struggles against these good teams in the NBA, guys. The Raptors are 1-10 now against top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. They're like 5 for 21 against the top 10 teams in the NBA. This team struggles continue to show when the opponents are better than them. Teams that are able to break them down easier defensively. Teams that are able to make their shots because of those breakdowns. Teams that are able to get down low in the post for easy layups like we saw tonight, or easy dunks. And it's too easy at times against these better NBA teams, guys. The Raptors just continue to show that they're just not good enough when the opponents know how to step it up a level physically, know how to step it up a level with their shot making, their defense. We saw it again tonight, especially in the fourth quarter against the Boston Celtics, who have done an incredible job this season, staying afloat without Jason Tatum. That's a lot of credit due to Jaylen Brown playing at an MVP level. Peyton Pritchard's also been playing some great minutes as well. Those two there have done some great things. Derek White as well, another solid player. The Celtics just have a great team, guys. 5 straight years of 50-plus wins for the Celtics. That's an NBA league lead right now, for 5 straight consecutive seasons to have that amount of wins. No team has done that yet. I'm sure the Thunder and the Spurs will eventually end up doing that. But right now, the Celtics have done that. They're obviously just a great all-around team. Great coaching as well by Joe Mazzulla. They showed that again in this game. Now, the Raptors did compete in this game. Kept it tight, in the first half. Kept it tight in the third quarter. But we saw again in this game, the stars didn't show up for the Raptors. Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes were pretty much non-existent in this game. Brandon Ingram did step it up a little bit in the second half, but not enough to get the Raptors over the line. The bench did step it up a little bit more, especially guys like Jacoby Walter. Jacoby was the leading scorer in the first half, having 13 points. Jacoby was really shooting the ball well, is obviously doing some great things defensively, say, with Colin Murray Buzz. Even though CMB only had 6 points on 3 of 6 shooting, I felt CMB did some really good things defensively. He's obviously improved as a player. Loved what he did. Driving to the lane, had that nice dunk there as well in the first half. So CMB was doing some great things. Jacoby was finding his shot, getting stops on defense. Scotty was doing some good things defensively, but Scotty only had 3 points, guys, in 60 minutes of play. Brandon Ingram only had 6 points in 17 minutes of play. So we needed Brandon and Scotty to step up in this game. This game here, the Raptors, these last 6 games, are fighting for their lives, of course, last 5-6 games, so after this loss tonight, you only got 4 games left in the season, guys. So the Raptors, this was a game here. You really needed Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram to step up in this game, and unfortunately, that just wasn't the case tonight. The bench, I felt, did some really good things tonight. They were a little bit productive more than our superstars were. It's just not good enough, if you say the least, guys. In the first half, Raptors are shooting 39%, 36% from three-point line. Guys, Boston's off shooting 49%, 20% from three. So they weren't shooting the ball really well in the first half. They kept Pritchard at bay in the first half. He got a little bit better in the second half. But unfortunately, Boston did some good things. Out-rebounded the Raptors by 12. Boston had more points in the paint, it looks like here, guys. Having 34 points in the paint compared to the Raptors' 26 in the first half here. The Raptors turned the ball over 6 times. So they forced Boston to turn over 10 times. So the Raptors were doing some good things on defense, like I mentioned, but unfortunately, Boston was executing a little bit more on their possessions. Even though the Raptors did have 16 assists on 18 made field goals, Boston had 12 on 23. They just were able to make more buckets, the Celtics, in the first half, but the Raptors kept it close. Were able to do some good things offensively and defensively as well, but we all know the Celtics, they're a great team. They're able to make improvements as well. They obviously have some great players, like I mentioned here, like to see guys, like Tatum with 11 at half. Queta had 16 at half. He was making a bloody mess on Jakob Poeltl. And that's where Jakob Poeltl has difficulties, where he's playing a really athletic center. Then he's really in difficult trouble here, because we all know Jakob's a bit of a stiff, not as athletic as a guy like Queta, of course, and that guy was having a bloody field day in the first half against the Raptors. So That's where you look at guys like Jakob Poeltl, where you're saying to yourself, this guy's making a shit ton of money and he's not able to stop guys like Queta. It's like really unfortunate. You got to look at guys like Bobby Webster like that and say to yourself, this is why you paid this guy, to get beat like this easily like this. So it's really frustrating. Brown at 12. So Tatum, Queta, and Brown, those guys were leading scorers for the Celtics. We obviously knew that was going to be the case for the Boston Celtics. We like I said, we kept Pritchard at bay, which was good. Pritchard, the guy's a really good player, and he's obviously torched the Raptors. He only had 2 points in the first half. He ended up finishing off with 17, so he had 15 in the second half. Did a little bit more damage, I felt, in the fourth quarter, but I thought the Raptors did a good job holding the Celtics off. In the third quarter as well, I thought the Raptors did some good things. They outscored Boston 31-26. Guys, Mama was making some threes. Raptors did get some stops defensively, of course, but this Raptors team, guys, we see it all the time. Obviously they have great third quarters, and then against these better teams in the NBA, they make adjustments. They step up offensively, step up defensively. We've seen this many times this season, and once again tonight, we saw it again against the Boston Celtics, guys. Boston outscoring the Raptors 35-24. Boston had some easy looks. Pritchard, Tatum, Brown had that three-pointer in the corner there that Scottie defended him really well on, but he still made the three-pointer. Those guys, they're elite shot makers. They know how to find the openings. They know when to drive the lane, collapse the defense, kick it out. Boston was able to do that a lot tonight. In the fourth quarter, you see guys like Derek White as well, hurting the Raptors with his threes. It was just a really unfortunate loss night for the Raptors. You had the Sixers losing last night to the Pistons. If the Raptors had won this game tonight, they'd be back in an automatic top 6 playoff spot. But unfortunately now, you lose this game tonight. You're tied with the Sixers on record. Sixers obviously have the tiebreaker, so they're back in the playoff spot, the 6th playoff spot. The Raptors didn't take advantage of their opportunities tonight. Obviously, you knew that the Raptors were going to have a big mountain to climb against a great team like the Celtics. And like with the record I mentioned against these better NBA teams, you knew that the Raptors were probably going to lose this game tonight. You knew there was not really many opportunities for them to win this game. It was going to be a very difficult game for them tonight. Even though you had guys, like Jacoby, who played well in the first half, had a really quiet second half, only having 3 points. RJ had 15. Yak had 14. Scottie and BI, BI had 15. Scottie had 10, guys. But, these are the things where you say to yourself, this is where you need your superstars to step up. Like, if you look at Tatum, who had 23 and 13 and 7, and then you had Brown, who had 26, 6 and 3 in 35 minutes. Tatum played 34. Those two guys there really stepped it up in the second half, guys. And like I mentioned, Pritchard as well, having 15 in the second half. He really woke up in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. And that's the difference between the Raptors and Boston. Those guys are superstars. Those guys are winners. They've won a title. They know how to get the job done. Like I said, great coaching as well. And, the Celtics show more maturity than the Raptors in this game tonight. And that's another thing with the Raptors. They show immaturity at times this season. They're obviously not as good as other NBA teams, of course, And they would be dog-walked in the playoffs if you guys with me. You're going to have to play a team like Boston, New York, who you play at the end of the season, the second last game of the year. That's probably going to be another automatic loss. Or the Pistons. You can't be one of those 3 teams. You have your difficulties against the lower NBA teams, like we saw against Sacramento, of course. So what makes us think, as Raptor fans, that they have any chance of really beating a team like Boston, Detroit, or New York? Like I mentioned there, guys, Mamu had 10 points. Colin Murray-Bullets had 12. So those guys did some good things. Shed had 7. So you had some decent minutes from the bench. 29 points from the bench there, guys. So that's not obviously horrible. But at the same time, though, you didn't get enough production from your starters. The Celtics starters were a lot better than us, and they're just a better team, like I've been saying this entire video. And the Raptors now have a huge mountain to climb. There's not too many games that you have to play. Miami twice, New York and Brooklyn. Those are 2 very difficult games. Miami's obviously in a playoff spot trying to adjust their positioning. So that game, those 2 games back-to-back are not going to be easy for the Raptors. Those are going to be 2 dog fights. And as the Raptors go and lose both those games to the Heat, per se, man, oh man, it is going to be a really ugly scenario for this basketball team. Just think about it, man. The entire season in a top 6 spot, around the 3, 4, 5 spot. Then things get tighter. Atlanta goes on their run. Sixers get healthy. And then within a couple weeks, just like that, the Raptors are in a play-in, fighting for a top 6 spot now. And things are looking really bleak for them going into the last week of the regular season, guys. I don't know where this team is going to go from here, honestly, with the rest of the season. If they end up losing, the rest of these games, say they lose to Miami, lose to the Knicks, and they beat the Nets, it's going to be a really unfortunate situation, to say the least. We see the holes with this team. Obviously don't have a backup center, don't have great perimeter shooters. Jakob Poeltl obviously has his deficiencies as well. Same with RJ Barrett defensively. Sure, the Raptors, like Scotty and BI, those guys there have their nights offensively, but then sometimes they have quiet nights. And then the Raptors are in really big trouble when those two there have quiet nights, also with RJ as well. So, the Raptors, when those three guys aren't scoring, it's going to be a really long night for this team, guys. And then when you're shooting the ball, the Raptors shot the ball decently tonight, 48% from the field, 40% from three-point line, guys. But at the same time, though, Boston got stops. Raptors turned the ball over 15 times. Boston turned it over 18 times. But Boston was able to get 26 points on turnovers. We got 24. But unfortunately, guys, Boston was able to shoot the ball better, be more efficient on their shots, and it's just another obvious and unfortunate loss tonight for the Toronto Raptors, guys. We'll see what happens against both games against Miami. This is their season now, basically. If they lose both those games to Miami, it is going to be bad, man. They might even drop to 10th. This is how ugly it's gotten in the last few weeks for the Raptors, guys. But things are looking bleak for this team right now. We'll love to your guys' thoughts and opinions on where this team stands right now, what the future holds for the next 4 games, and what maybe happens in the offseason. But right now, the playoffs are not a guarantee for this team, guys. Their players didn't show up tonight when they had to. Their bench did, but their starters did not. Boston's did. And that's the difference between the Celtics and the Raptors right now. Championship pedigree against an immature team that's still finding themselves and trying to win games against these better opponents, guys. But we'll love to your guys' thoughts and opinions on this one, guys. So like this video, subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Go Raptors, go as always, guys. See you guys on the next episode of Raptors Unfiltered. Ciao, guys.